Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and boy, we got a fun project today. We're going to take a reel that Keenan, who's a viewer on our channel, got when he started fishing, and it's about 20 or 25 years ago. Loves the reel, said it's gotten noisy, and could I do the Boca bearing upgrade on this one? And I said, sure, let's get involved with this. So what is this? This is the Daiwa Jupiter X. It's a nice reel. It's kind of sturdy, so that kind of tells you the early part of the graphite era when you over-engineered the graphite. Now, of course, the cases are thinner and a little bit lighter. Very attractive in design. Daiwa tends to do that. And the Jupiter X was a nice reel all around. This one, I think, is about a 30 size reel. 35 because of 3505. That means it's good for rivers, for lakes, for piers, for casting from shore, even a little bit of inshore ocean fishing. It's a little bit of everything there. And, well, one of the features of this one is the fast cast. They call it, I got a twist buster in there. Of course, you don't move that with your thumb. You use your index finger when it's mounted on the piece. But you never have to touch the line when you're casting. When you go to throw, you have your finger rested on there. Throw in the arc and pull back to release the bail, which will let the line out, and you never touch the line as a result. And they're not as common today in some of the more sturdier reels like the 3500 series here. And so folks that like that type of a feature, like the reels, stick with them. And that's what Keenan has done. Well, this noise, he said, you can hear it's a little noisy. And he said, can you do me a favor here, quiet that down. And, oh, by the way, can you put the Boca bearing in there? So we're going to do that today. And we're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. While I do this, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Doesn't cost you anything. It'll show you all types of things about fishing reel service and repair, a little bit about how they're used, who made them, when they made them, and the like. If you like learning that kind of information, or maybe you have a favorite reel like Keenan that you want to service yourself, I'm going to show you how to do that. There's over 2,000 videos in the library right now, and chances are the one that you have or the one you're thinking about servicing has one that's either there in the library or close enough that one of the ones I've done of a similar design can apply to yours. But we're going to continue to do these because, well, folks like to see how it's done. And, well, that's part of what we do here. So if you like these kinds of videos, again, please subscribe. If you do subscribe, use that notification button. Well, we're going to start with removing the spool. We can pull off the click ratchet and the spool height adjuster. And when I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray for safekeeping. And I do recommend that as you are working on a reel that you have a method of parts management. Now mine is a parts tray. Doesn't have to be for you. A lot of people like an approach that is just line them up in the order you took them off and you reverse the order when you put them back. I've tried it. It works. And I think some folks tell me that's the way they teach you how to do it in the military. And well, if it works for you, go ahead and do that. I'm removing the 3 side plate screws that are large. There's also a small one. You need to note as you're doing this what pieces go where, because if you try to put a long screw in a short hole, you're going to have a problem. And if you're going to try and put a thin screw where a long one goes, it just won't fit, that kind of thing. And that's all important in terms of how you put the reel back together again. Well, he's lucky here. He asked me about the putting the ceramic bearing in this. He wants to take it in the ocean. And, well, there's only one bearing in this reel. I guess a future project might be to go and upgrade the bushings, but as you're going to find out, this is a rather simple reel in design, which is wonderful, because the more simple the design is, the less likely it is to break on you, and if it does break, chances are the parts are going to be available. Well, I've just loosened up. I've used a multi-tool to loosen up the rotor nut. We're going to take that off next. And folks ask me why I use the Boca bearings, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is we're using an ABEX 7 rating bearing, which is a very high, very efficient bearing for the reel. It's a ceramic bearing, which means it won't wear in the salt water, it won't corrode, and well, it'll just help you to run a smoother operating reel. Why do I use Boca? It's a reputable company that has been around for over 30 years. It's a family-run business, and overall, you can, when they say that you're going to get a ABEX 7 bearing, well, you're going to get one. And why do I say that? Well, there's folks on the internet and that, well, let's just say that they're less than forthright in what you're getting. I just don't trust it. And if you're in the reel repair business, if that's something that you like to do, I like to rest assured that I'm getting what I'm paying for. Boca is the company to do that. All right, we've removed the rotor. We can see this is a single stop anti-reverse because this is always going to come back so that your trip arm on your rotor lands where your finger can grab it to flip it. So we'll show you how to fix that if there's an issue with the way it's landing. All right, I'm going to take this off right now. This is your collar. When I do that, I always advise folks, take pictures before you get too far into the disassembly of your reel. My picture happens to be the video here, and I would be joking if I said I've never gone back and looked at the videos that I've created to try and figure out where a piece or a part went. Pictures are a great way for you to learn and to record what it is that you've done along the way so that it can bail you out should you need that. All right, the 3 screws plus the small one is out. The rotor is off, and you had to remove the rotor to get this side plate off because this lip goes under the rotor. We can remove this now. I think we got a bushing that might be a little sticky here. I'm just going to put this handle in and turn it a little bit as I try to pull off. That generally will help me to get it off. There you go. And inside you can see a pretty straightforward design. Again, we have a plastic bushing in there. Maybe that's the next project we do. We go and show you how to upgrade this to bushing, the bushings to bearings. But right now, crosswind block, oscillation gear, main gear, axle shaft, pinion gear, ball bearing that we're going to replace. Well, we want to take the opportunity to remove this. You start with your crosswind block and screw. Once the screw is out, hold your crosswind block and pull out on the axle shaft. When you're pulling out on the axle shaft, make sure it comes out nice and easy. If you feel any resistance, if you really have to pull hard to get it out, you may have a bent axle shaft. And if the parts are available, it would be wise to replace that if it's bent out of shape. If it's got a curve like that, when it's trying to pass through the straight of the pinion gear, it will rub and cause an issue. With that out now, you can remove your main gear. You can see the bushing in the back again. We're going to remove the crosswind block, and these parts are pretty substantial. This is a decent intermediate sized reel for the time. It wasn't an inexpensive one, and well, it's just a nice example of the engineering back in the day. I'm going to say the 1990s here. And Keenan didn't tell me exactly when he got it, but he did tell me it's been his fan favorite for quite some time. There is dried grease within the case, so I just used a little penetrating oil. Now I'm using a cotton swab to help me mop up the dissolved grease. I find that the penetrating oil does a very good job of cleaning up the cases. All right. I also use the paper towels to mop down. It looks like we have a little bit that's settled on the bottom here. So grease always works with gravity. Wherever you hang your rod and reel, however you store it, the grease is over time, if it's not moved a lot, will puddle down to gravity's low point. So this was probably stored this way because the grease has been on the inner side of this case. Okay, 2 more screws to remove. You don't have to remove this anti-reverse dog because you can get access to the pinion gear and to the bearing by removing these 2 screws which anchor it to the case. without doing that changeover on that dog. Now, of course, if you're having trouble with the dog, if it's sticking, if you're not getting an anti-reverse, then you certainly want to take it off, clean it, and the like. Right here, we're just going to put a little drop of oil there. That should be fine. Again, I want to put my pieces into the carrier, my case, so that I know where they are. And simply pull up and out, and that will give you your pinion gear and your noisy ball bearing. Well, we can see that's a contributing factor that the bearing, well, it's probably 25 years old now, right? I didn't do the math, but let's say 1990, it's 35 years old, right? And it doesn't look like this has had any grease in quite some time. Doesn't appear as though anything is really wrong with the reel. It's very clean, given the age of the reel. Still, you want to take a bristle brush, you want to clean the tracks of your pinion gear, you want to inspect them to make sure they're not bent or broken. And then we want to freshen up the grease, and we're going to use fishing reel grease. I only recommend fishing reel grease when you're working on fishing reels. Folks, send in notes to me. You know, I want to use gun oil, for example. And it's your reel, you can use that. And while I'm not certain, I'm not a chemist. I'm certain I'm not a chemist. Well, I'm not certain of the chemical properties of that. It probably is close enough that you won't go wrong with it. But, you know, the folks that make the fishing reel greases and oils make them specifically for marine applications. And why bet against them? It's been around a long time. All right, here's our replacement bearing. For those of you that wonder how you get a replacement bearing, you can measure it. You can use a digital caliper, measure the inside diameter, in this case it's 8, measure the outside diameter, in this case it's 16, and measure the width, and that's 5. They're all in millimeters. And then you can order the replacement for it. You don't have to find a Daiwa-specific bearing. Again, this is a Boca bearing ABEX 7 with a rubber seal on it, the orange rubber seal. It's ceramic, and the ABEX 7 is a rating about the differences in the variation on the balls themselves inside the bearing, and that means that there's a very low difference between each one of them, which means they're going to run more efficiently. Once you do that, take it and place it back into the case. Oh my gosh, look at how that spins with that ball bearing in there now. If I tried to do that on the last one, I probably would get it about a half a turn. Well, it's not going to matter for casting, is it? Because when you cast, you have a fixed spool, the line's going to come off without it, but it's certainly going to make it easier to turn that reel when it's time to collect the line. I'm going to go back and grab the 2 anchor screws and put those back in. I think anybody who watches these videos and sees the performance of these bearings knows that's the answer. Now, sometimes I get the question, you know, they're not cheap bearings. And Keenan said, I want those. I want them because I'm in salt water. I want them because I love this reel and it's not going anywhere. It's going on fishing trips with me as much as it can. And, you know, I don't mind spending a few extra dollars on a higher quality bearing than if I had just, you know, took the low cost route, right? And so here we are. Very good. All right, that's back in. I love that. That's cool. All right, next up then, we have bushings. You don't need to do anything with those bushings. We do need to clean the main gear. Again, I'm going to go to that penetrating oil and the cotton swab. There's just some old greases that have accumulated on the inside. They get on the inside of the gear because centrifugal force throws the gear inward and it comes out of the teeth. And just like we did with the pinion gear, we want to take our time here, grab a bristle brush, pull through, make sure that you clear out any of the greases that may be dried there. Do it on both the cog that drives the oscillation gear as well as the main gear. Inspect them. I kind of did that on the fly there. And then we can re-grease. And again, this hasn't seen grease in a very long time, so you can be liberal with it. And I get questions, how frequently should you service your reel? I always recommend on an annual basis. It's not because I'm in the business of reel repair. I encourage you to do it yourself. But that will keep it worry-free. And, well, if you're out there fishing, you don't have to concern yourself that something might fail when you've got the fish of a lifetime on the line. All right, you inspect the oscillation gear the same way. Check all the teeth. This one gets grease on all sides. The back runs along that case. You saw that little bushing inside there. The face is where the oscillation gear is going to ride. And you want to grease the teeth because that's going to ride with that smaller cog on the back of the main gear. Once you've greased it up, place it into the case. And when you put it into the case, make sure that the stud on that oscillation gear is on the downside. At this point, you can also put a drop of oil onto the override arm. And we can take a moment here to put the main gear. Oops, let's put the crossline block back in. You can do it either way. This one's just gives you more reach there. The crossline block only gets grease on the back side. Nothing else turns any moving parts. Bring that in. Main gear can be placed back in now. You have to put the main gear in before you put the axle shaft in. Okay, we can bring the axle shaft in now. On some models, you're going to find that the axle shaft has a pin coming through the top. If it has a pin coming through the top, you need to install the rotor before the axle shaft. That's not the case on this one. Just a very light coating of grease onto the shaft. If you glob it up, it's only going to scrape off as it goes through your pinion gear, but you should have a little bit in there. And then line it up so that when you have the axle shaft installed, the hole in the axle shaft is aligned with your crossline block. Next up then, the small flathead screw that you took out goes into your crossline block and ties the axle shaft together. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, leave those questions in the comment section. I try to reply to them every day in the mornings. So if you're looking for additional information, maybe you're looking to be helped out of a jam, and maybe you got stuck on something, or maybe you just want information on reel repair and service and the like, leave those comments in that section. I will try to answer those for you. I just took a little kitchen scrubby that has a rod and reel cleaner on it. And I've cleaned off the film that's on the case here. Since it's a bearing, since it's not a bearing, since it's a bushing, we can put a little bit of grease here. And that will facilitate it running around inside that plastic bushing there. Close your case up. That's what I was waiting for, the snap. Make sure that you have a nice tight snap. And clean the rest of the case now that I have this out. And go to get your screws now. Remember, there's 3 wide screws and 1 short or narrow screw. Pretty hard to mess this one up, but there's some manufacturers and some reels out there that have 4 case screws and every one of them is different. So you need to pay attention to what comes out of what slot. They do that because some of them need clearances, some of them have wide sections of the reel, and then some are narrow. There's a lot of reasons why it's done, but you need to just know that they're not all the same. And I've had folks from time to time send me a reel in a bag project, said I took this reel apart, I just can't figure out how to put it back together again. And a lot of times it has to do with them putting screws in the wrong places. So be advised. All right, 3 of the 4 are in. Make sure they're tight and snug. Here's your small one. Good design on this reel. As I mentioned, it's not sophisticated at all. It's a straightforward design. I always appreciate minimalistic designs. And, well, it just plain works. This is our cam for our anti-reverse. It has a single stop. When the reel is cranking and it goes to stop, this anti-reverse dog here will pull right on that and stop the reel. You can see how it will intersect here. It'll come back, and that stops it from back spinning. Okay, next up then, what we want to do is take our rotor. We want to install our rotor. And if you, I had mentioned it's possible you can put this 180 degrees the wrong way. If you've locked that cam in like this, it's just line it up. However, if you found yourself putting the rotor on and finding that at the stop it's 180 degrees off of where it should be on these quick releases, it's a simple fix. Just turn it 180 degrees the other way and it will seat properly. Next up then is our rotor nut. Hand tighten these. You do not want to cross strip the threading on that pinion gear. Use your tool. Now this one has a short lip. You can probably reach it with an open end wrench. I just keep this tool on my bench because it enables me to get over that axle shaft and tighten. I understand those are available in hobby shops, like where they sell radio controlled cars and the like, RC cars. And if you're interested in that, you can look it up there. I'm sure it's available online as well. This has the 9, 10, 11, and 12 millimeter sockets all in that tool, and you may find it beneficial to you. This is an interchangeable handle, can go on either side. It came in on the left side, so we're going to put it on the left side. I'm going to tighten up this side here with the screw. That's going to hold the handle in place. And then we got one more thing to do. We're going to check the drag washers on this. My guess is that these probably have felt drag washers in it, but I'm uncertain. But regardless of what's in there, you should test those and make sure that they're serviced, particularly on a reel like this, which is so dry. You don't want fishing reel drag washers to dry out if they're felt, because they're going to tear. If you're got a different fabric in there, that's fine. These are felt drag washers. There's nothing wrong with felt drag washers. Daiwa and Shimano, Penn, and others have used the felt washers. They work perfectly fine, but you need to keep them lubricated so that they do not dry out and do not crack or break under tension. Just load it up with oil. If you like, you can use fishing reel grease. Either one of them will work. You're going to have two washers that have rectangles in the center. They're called keyed washers. They go high and low. And we just repeat this process. We take a second drag washer, load it up with some oil. And now the second or middle drag washer from the metals is called an eared washer. It has 2 points on each side and an open center. They fit into the slots in the reel. So they go like that. Then we put the third drag washer in. And again, I'm not worried terribly about the oil. If anything, it'll press down and out, but it will keep these fresh and useful. All right. Once that stack is set, take your pin. There's a groove that these fit into, just like that. And that's a retention clip. That's the only purpose it serves. With that done, then, we can bring this back on. Seat it, and get your drag adjuster knob, and we can go over what we did. What did we do? Keenan sent this reel in, said that it's been a reel that he's owned since his boyhood. He's enjoyed fishing with the reel. I kind of like that. That's, I don't know what he's been using for the line, but that sticker back there has managed to stay on. Obviously, he's had to wear with the handles and all, but that's kind of neat by itself, right? He said it's been noisy. It's time for a tune-up. He'd like to keep fishing with this one, probably in retirement, I guess. I don't know, but he wants to fish for a long time. We showed you the reel's features and functions. It does have this easy cast feature for casting, and we showed you it's a single ball bearing reel. Told you a little bit about how to measure it, inside diameter, outside diameter, and height. We explained that we get these from Boca bearings because they're a reliable supplier, and that the ABEX 7 is probably the best bearing you could possibly put in a reel. Particularly one like this, and maybe in the future we'll go back and if Keenan would like to do that after the fishing season's over, and that if he wants to upgrade those bushings to bearings, we could do that as well. Well, let's give it a test, see how we did. Oh, gee whiz. It spins so nice and easy now. You couldn't do that before. This is just beautiful. That's the difference that a fresh bearing, particularly a ceramic bearing, is going to do. Notice the noise went away. Now you do get a little bit of noise, that's bearing noise, on a reel like this, and that's because these bearings run dry. Running it dry reduces the friction and makes it the most efficient bearing. If you don't like that noise, a simple drop of oil, single drop, on that orange seal will seep in and will quiet that bearing down. It'll do it at the price of efficiency because that oil will introduce friction. It will slow it a little bit, but if you don't like the sound of the ceramic bearing, go ahead and do that. I like it just the way it is. I think Keenan's going to love this reel. I'll bet you he can't wait to get it out on the water. And one more time on this. There you go. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the reel, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It'll help you to see what I'm posting, and it's certainly going to help me in the channel rankings and a lot of other sort of stuff. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way, everybody who's dedicated their careers to public service and to public safety. I also want to thank you, the viewers, for watching. You're what makes this channel work. Your comments, your dedication, your viewership, your suggestions, all of that help drive the topics that I cover and how I cover them. Well, I want to thank everybody. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.